The conference room floated 300 kilometers above Earth's surface. Through the transparent walls, the blue planet turned slowly beneath them, peaceful and unaware of what was coming. Ambassador Thexelor stood at the center of the room, his four arms crossed in what his species considered a gesture of absolute authority. His skin flickered between deep purple and angry red, broadcasting his impatience to anyone who understood Krillian biology. Across from him sat Admiral Sarah Chen, her hands folded calmly on the table. She wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's United Defense Force, 3 silver stars on her collar catching the light from the planet below. 2 other human officers stood behind her, silent and still. They had been listening to Thexelor speak for nearly an hour. "This is your final warning," Thexelor said, his translator device rendering his clicking speech into flat, emotionless English. "The Galactic Council has assembled the largest military force in 12,000 years of recorded history. 847 species have contributed vessels to this armada. 50,000 warships now gather at the edge of your solar system. This is not a threat. This is a certainty." Admiral Chen nodded slowly, as if he was discussing weather patterns rather than the potential extinction of her species. "I understand," she said. "Do you?" Thexelor leaned forward, his primary arms slamming on the table. "Your species has violated the Treaty of Contained Species. You destroyed a Council enforcement fleet. You refused to submit to galactic law. You have colonized star systems beyond your designated boundaries. These are acts of war against the established order of the galaxy." "We defended ourselves," Chen replied, her voice calm. "Your enforcement fleet attacked our mining colony without warning. They killed 14,000 civilians, including children. We responded." "You responded by destroying military vessels belonging to 3 Council species," Thexelor countered. "That cannot stand. The Council maintains order across thousands of systems. If every young species decided to fight back when corrected, chaos would consume everything." Chen smiled slightly. It was a small expression, barely visible, but Thexelor noticed it. He had studied human expressions extensively in preparation for this meeting. Smiles could mean many things for humans: happiness, friendliness, nervousness, or even aggression. This smile seemed to be something else entirely, something he could not quite identify. "So you want our surrender," Chen said. "Unconditional surrender," Thexelor confirmed. "Your military forces will be disbanded. Your vessels will be destroyed. Earth and its colonies will accept permanent monitoring stations. Your species will not travel beyond your home system without Council approval. These terms are not negotiable." "And if we refuse?" Thexelor's skin flashed pure red. "Then the Armada will enter your system in 72 hours. They will destroy every military installation, every orbital station, every ship you possess. Your cities will not be harmed if you do not resist, but your capacity for space travel will be eliminated for the next 1,000 years. You will return to your home planet and stay there until the Council decides your species has learned proper respect." Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at her hands, then up at the Earth, turning below them. Thexelor felt a moment of satisfaction. Finally, the human was beginning to understand the hopelessness of her situation. He had seen this moment before with other species, the moment when pride gave way to survival instinct, the moment when they realized they could not win. Then Admiral Chen looked up, and she was smiling again. Not the small, barely visible expression from before. This was a full smile, genuine and bright. Her eyes seemed to sparkle with something Thexelor had not expected to see: amusement. "Tell your Armada," Chen said slowly, clearly, "that we will meet them at the Lunar Gateway in 72 hours. Tell them to come with everything they have. Tell them to bring every ship, every weapon, every advantage they think they possess." Thexelor stared at her. "You cannot be serious. You are accepting battle against an armada of 50,000 ships? Your entire fleet consists of perhaps 200 vessels. We have counted them. We have cataloged every ship, every weapon system, every defensive installation. You have no secret reserves. You have no hidden allies. You have nothing that could possibly stand against what is coming. We have enough, Chen said simply. You have madness, Thexler snapped. Or perhaps you humans truly do not understand mathematics. 50,000 against 200. Those are not odds. That is annihilation. Chen stood up, and her two officers moved to flank her. Ambassador Thexler, she said formally, please convey our response to the Council. We will not surrender. We will meet your armada at the designated coordinates in exactly 72 hours. We look forward to the encounter. She extended her hand across the table in the human gesture of farewell. Thexler did not take it. He simply stared at her, searching for any sign of deception or hidden strategy. He found nothing but that inexplicable smile. You are choosing extinction, he said quietly. We are choosing to fight, Chen replied. There is a difference. Thexler turned and walked toward the airlock where his shuttle waited. As he reached the door, he paused and looked back. I have participated in 17 compliance actions during my service to the Council, he said. I have seen species choose war over wisdom before. Not one of them survived to regret their choice. I almost wish you humans had proven wiser. Your species showed potential. Ambassador, Chen called after him. One more thing. He turned. When you report back to the Council, when you tell them we refused their generous offer, make sure you mention something for me. What is that? Her smile widened. Tell them we said thank you. Thank you? Thexler's translator struggled with the phrase, as if uncertain it had processed correctly. For what? For gathering everyone in one place, Chen said. It saves us considerable time. Thexler left without another word, but as his shuttle descended toward his ship in low orbit, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. He had delivered ultimatums to dozens of species. He had seen every reaction from tearful pleading to violent rage, but he had never seen what he saw in Admiral Chen's eyes. She had not looked defeated or defiant or desperate. She had looked confident, completely, absolutely confident. As his ship broke orbit and began the journey back to the assembled armada, Thexler reviewed the recording of the meeting 3 times. Each time he stopped at the same moment. That smile. That impossible, inexplicable smile. He sent his report to the Council with one additional note, a personal observation that went against all his training and experience. The humans are not behaving as expected. Recommend additional intelligence gathering before proceeding. The response came back within minutes. Intelligence is complete. All human assets have been cataloged. Proceed as planned. Thexler forwarded the order to the Armada commanders and tried to ignore the small, persistent doubt that whispered in his mind. The doubt that suggested humans might know something the Council did not. The doubt that suggested that smile meant something terrible was about to happen. The Galactic Armada assembled beyond Earth's moon like a metal forest growing in space. 50,000 ships from 847 different species, each one representing a different approach to war and engineering. Some vessels stretched kilometers long, massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets. Others moved in swarms, thousands of small fighters coordinating like schools of fish. The variety was stunning, overwhelming, a display of military power that no single species could hope to match. Captain Vornith of the Krillian Dominion commanded the heavy cruiser Relentless Authority from his position in the battlesphere's outer ring. His ship was positioned to observe the human defensive fleet while staying ready to attack. He had been watching the humans for 6 hours now, and nothing made sense. "Status report," Vornith ordered, his voice tight with confusion. His sensor officer, a young Krillian named Pexal, looked up from her console. Her skin showed pale blue, the color of uncertainty. "Sir, the human fleet is maintaining its previous formation. No changes in the last 3 hours." Formation? Vorneth stood and walked to the main display. That is not a formation. That is chaos. He was not wrong. The human vessels drifted in loose clusters scattered across the space between Earth and the Moon. There was no defensive sphere, no battle line, no strategic positioning that matched any known tactical doctrine. Ships that should be protecting each other were separated by thousands of kilometers. Fast attack craft mixed randomly with heavy cruisers. Supply vessels sat exposed in positions that made them easy targets. Perhaps they are incompetent, suggested Tralix, the weapons officer. Young species often lack proper military organization. No, Vorneth said slowly. They destroyed our enforcement fleet 3 cycles ago. The humans who did that were not incompetent. They were precise, efficient, and ruthless. This is something else. Pexall adjusted her sensors, focusing on individual human vessels. Sir, I am detecting unusual activity. The humans are moving between ships. Repositioning crews? No, sir. They are visiting each other, small shuttles moving from vessel to vessel. Our translators are picking up their communications. They are... She paused, double-checking her readings. They appear to be sharing meals. Vorneth's skin flashed confused orange. Sharing meals? Before a battle? Yes, sir. We are detecting what their language calls barbecues on several of the larger vessels. They are also exchanging items, small packages passing between crews. Tralix laughed, a clicking sound of derision. They celebrate their own deaths. How pathetic. But Vorneth was not laughing. He had fought in 17 military campaigns during his 30 years of service. He had seen how species behaved when facing certain defeat. Some panicked. Some became rigidly formal, clinging to discipline as their world fell apart. Some simply gave up, letting their ships drift powerlessly while waiting for the end. Not once had he seen a doomed fleet have a party. He opened a channel to the Armada's command ship, the massive Zenthari Dreadnought Council's judgment. This is Captain Vorneth requesting conference with command. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to War Master Krelnak, a Zenthari with silver scales and eyes like black diamonds. Captain, why are you disturbing command operations? Sir, I need to report unusual behavior among the human forces. We are aware they are poorly organized, Krelnak said dismissively. This will make our victory faster. With respect, War Master, I do not believe they are disorganized. I believe they are doing something we do not understand. Krelnak was silent for a moment. Explain. Vorneth shared his sensor data, showing the humans moving between ships, the strange gatherings, the complete lack of defensive preparation. This is not how a defeated species behaves, he concluded. Perhaps, Krelnak said slowly, you are right. I will consult with the Psychological Warfare Division. 2 hours later, Vorneth received the report from the Psychological Warfare Specialists. He read it 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. The experts were as confused as he was. Their analysis included video feeds from human vessels, intercepted communications, even bioscans of human crew members. Every single piece of data pointed to the same impossible conclusion. The humans were happy. Not the desperate happiness of people trying to forget their doom, not the artificial cheerfulness of propaganda, genuine happiness. Their bioscans showed relaxed muscle tension, normal stress hormones, and brain activity consistent with people enjoying themselves. Their communications were filled with jokes, laughter, and casual conversation. Most disturbing of all were their faces. The Psychological Warfare Division had included hundreds of images of human crew members from the visual feeds. Every single human was smiling. Some grinned broadly. Others showed small, knowing smiles. A few even laughed as they looked at the massive armada arrayed against them. The report's conclusion was tentative and uncertain. Possible mass delusion, Possible cultural death ritual creating false emotional state. Possible unknown drug affecting entire fleet. Recommend proceeding with extreme caution until psychological state is understood. Vorneth sent the report to his officers. Tralix read it and made a dismissive gesture. They are insane. That is the only explanation. But Pexol, the young censor officer, was staring at her console with wide eyes. "Sir," she said quietly, "may I speak freely?" "Always," Vorneth said. "What if they know something we do not?" The words hung in the air like a threat. Tralix laughed again, but it sounded forced. "Impossible. Our intelligence has been perfect. We know everything about their fleet, every ship, every weapon, every defensive position." "Then why are they smiling?" Pexol asked. "Sir, I have a brother in merchant service. He once told me about a human trader he met. He said the human had a strange saying, 'If your enemy seems happy to see you, check your back.'" Vorneth felt his skin ripple with unease. He returned to his command chair and brought up the long-range sensors, expanding the view to show not just the human fleet, but the entire inner solar system. Nothing. Empty space. A few asteroids in their predictable orbits, the human mining colonies on Mars and in the asteroid belt, all quiet and apparently abandoned. "Run a full-spectrum scan," he ordered. "Everything. Radar, thermal, electromagnetic, gravitic. I want to know about every rock larger than a fighter craft in this system." Pexol worked her console for several minutes. "Nothing unusual, sir. The system is clear except for the human fleet and normal planetary bodies." "Scan again. Use active sensors this time." "Sir, that will reveal our position. They know where we are. Scan." The active sensors pulsed outward, invisible waves of energy that would bounce back from anything solid. The returns came flooding back, and Pexol processed them carefully. "Still nothing, sir. I am detecting the human fleet, their orbital stations, and planetary bodies. Nothing else." Vorneth sat back, trying to calm his rising anxiety. Perhaps he was being paranoid. Perhaps the humans truly were just insane or drugged or participating in some cultural ritual he could not understand. Perhaps their smiles meant nothing. But he had not survived 30 years of military service by ignoring his instincts. On the human flagship, Admiral Sarah Chen floated in zero gravity, looking out at the massive armada arrayed against her fleet. Around her, the bridge crew worked calmly, checking systems and confirming positions. No one looked worried. No one looked scared. Her second-in-command, Commander Marcus Webb, drifted up beside her. "The Council forces have completed their assembly," he reported. "All 50,000 ships are now in position. We have 66 hours until their deadline." "Perfect timing," Chen said. "Admiral, some of the crew are asking if they can send messages home, just in case." Chen looked at him and smiled. "Tell them yes, but remind them to keep it vague. No operational details." "You really think operational security matters at this point?" "Marcus," Chen said quietly, "it matters more now than ever." She turned back to the window, watching the enemy armada. 50,000 ships, an overwhelming force by any measure. The kind of force that should make any defender despair. But Admiral Chen was not despairing. She was counting down the hours, waiting for the trap to spring, and remembering the 3 years of preparation that had led to this moment. She was also smiling, because in 66 hours everything would change. The deadline expired at exactly 1400 hours, Earth Standard Time. The Galactic Armada had been holding position for 72 hours, waiting for humanity's inevitable surrender. It never came. War Master Krell Nak stood on the bridge of Council's judgment, his silver scales reflecting the light from dozens of tactical displays. Around him, officers from 20 different species coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. The time for talking had ended. The time for demonstration had arrived. Open a channel to the human flagship, Krelnak ordered. The image of Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the main screen. She stood on her bridge, hands clasped behind her back, wearing the same calm expression she had maintained for 3 days. That smile still played at the corners of her mouth. Admiral Chen, Krelnak began formally, your time has expired. You have refused the Council's generous terms. You have chosen destruction over wisdom. Before we begin, I will ask one final time. Will you surrender? No, Chen said simply. Krelnak nodded slowly. Then let the record show that we offered peace. What happens now is your responsibility. Actually, Chen said, and her smile widened into a full grin. What happens now is your responsibility. You chose to come here. You chose to bring every ship you had. You chose to gather in one convenient location. She paused. Thank you for that, by the way. It saves us considerable time. Before Krelnak could respond, Admiral Chen pressed a button on her command console. All units, she said calmly, execute Revelation Protocol. For a moment, nothing happened. The Armada's sensors showed the same readings they had displayed for 3 days. 200 human ships drifting in loose formation, hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned. Then the tactical displays started screaming. New contacts appeared on every sensor screen across the Armada, not near Earth, where the human defensive fleet waited, but surrounding the Armada itself. Behind every moon, inside every asteroid cluster, concealed within debris fields and sensor shadows, new ships emerged. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands. Report! Krelnak roared, his scales flashing alarm red. The sensor officer, a Plexan with 6 eyes and trembling tentacles, struggled to process the data. New contacts appearing on all vectors, behind the lunar surface, within the asteroid belt, in high orbit around Mars. They were hidden, sir, completely invisible until now. How many? Counting now. 15,000, 20,000. The number keeps rising, sir. They are everywhere. We are surrounded. Captain Vornith watched his tactical display in horror as the truth revealed itself. The human fleet was not 200 ships. It had never been 200 ships. That visible fleet had been bait, a deception so complete that the Council had orchestrated its own encirclement. The new human vessels looked nothing like the ships the Council had been watching. These were sleek, angular craft with hull configurations that made no sense according to known engineering principles. They moved with impossible precision, sliding into formation around the Armada like pieces of a vast puzzle clicking into place. Within 5 minutes, the Galactic Armada found itself trapped in a perfect sphere of overlapping weapons coverage. Every Council ship was targeted by multiple human vessels. There was no direction to flee, no formation to adopt that would protect their flanks. Admiral Chen's voice echoed across every communications channel in the Armada. For 3 years, she said, her voice calm and almost conversational, you have been watching our entire fleet defend Earth. You cataloged every ship. You analyzed every weapon system. You mapped every defensive position. Your intelligence was perfect. She paused, and her image appeared on view screens across 50,000 ships. That smile was unmistakable now. It was the smile of a predator that had just closed its trap. That was the point, Chen continued. While you watched 200 old warships patrolling our system, while your spies reported and your analysts calculated, we built the real fleet. We built it in the dark spaces between planets, in the shadows of asteroids, in places you never thought to look, because you were so certain you knew everything. On the Council's judgment, Krelnak felt something he had not experienced in 20 years of military command. Genuine fear. How? He whispered. As if hearing him, Chen answered. You thought we were a young species, primitive and easy to contain. You thought our one victory was luck or desperation. You never considered that we might be intelligent, that we might plan. that we might deceive. She gestured to something off-screen, and new data began flooding Council sensors. Technical specifications of the human vessels now surrounding them. Weapon systems that operated on principles the Council had never seen. Defensive shields that worked in ways their scientists had claimed were impossible. "Every spy you sent us, we caught," Chen said. "And then we fed them exactly what we wanted you to know. Every diplomatic meeting, every confrontation, every piece of intelligence you gathered was part of the deception. We made you think you understood us. We made you comfortable. We made you certain." Vorneth reviewed his sensor logs. Going back 3 years to when Council monitoring of humanity had begun. He saw it now, so obvious in hindsight. The human patrol patterns had been too regular, too predictable. Their defensive positions had been exactly where the Council expected them to be. Their capabilities had matched perfectly with what should have been possible for a species at their technology level. It had all been theater, a performance designed to make the Council see exactly what the humans wanted them to see. "You wanted everything we had," Admiral Chen said, her voice harder now. "You wanted to prove that the Council could crush any species that defied you. So you gathered your armada. You brought 50,000 ships from 847 species. You assembled the largest military force in recorded history." She leaned forward, and her smile vanished. "And you delivered it straight into our trap." The tactical displays told the story clearly. The Galactic Armada, massive and powerful, was also slow and unable to maneuver effectively. 50,000 ships required enormous space to operate. They could not turn quickly or change formation without risking collisions. Their own size had become their greatest weakness. The human fleet, by contrast, was spread in a carefully calculated sphere around them. Every human ship had clear firing lanes. Every Council vessel was targeted by weapons they did not understand and could not predict. "You have 2 options," Chen said. "First option, you can surrender. Your ships will be disabled and your crews returned home unharmed. The Council will accept new terms for galactic governance, terms that include representation for every species you have suppressed or controlled." Krelnak's scales rippled with rage. "And the second option?" "You can fight," Chen said simply. "And you can discover exactly what humanity is capable of when we are properly motivated." Silence fell across the Armada. 50,000 ships, millions of crew members, hundreds of different command structures, all processing the same impossible situation. They had come to deliver an ultimatum. Instead, they had received one. On the relentless authority, Captain Vorneth stared at the human vessels surrounding his ship. "Pexal," he said quietly to his sensor officer. "You were right. They knew something we did not." "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice shaking. "What do we do?" Vorneth looked at the tactical display one more time. He thought about his family on the Krillian homeworld. He thought about the 17 campaigns he had survived by being smart rather than brave. He thought about that smile he had seen on Admiral Chen's face 3 days ago. "We wait for orders from command," he said, "and we hope the War Master is as intelligent as he claims to be." On the Council's judgment, Krelnak faced the most important decision of his career. His pride demanded that he fight. His military training screamed at him to find a weakness in the human formation and exploit it. His political instincts warned him that surrender would end his career and possibly his life. But his survival instinct, honed by decades of combat, told him the truth. Humanity had already won this battle. The only question was how many Council soldiers would die before everyone else accepted that fact. He looked at Admiral Chen's image on his screen. That confident smile had returned. She was waiting, patient and certain, for him to make his choice. "How long do we have to decide?" Krelnak asked. 12 hours, Chen replied. "After that, we stop being patient." The channel closed, leaving Krelnak alone with his thoughts and the terrible knowledge that humanity had outsmarted the entire Galactic Council. The species that was supposed to be contained and controlled had instead orchestrated the greatest military trap in recorded history, and they had been smiling about it the entire time. The first hour after the revelation was chaos. Across 50,000 ships, commanders demanded answers from their superiors. Some species called for immediate attack, unwilling to accept that they had been outmaneuvered. Others urged caution, recognizing the perfection of the trap. A few suggested immediate surrender, seeing no point in dying for pride. War Master Krelnak silenced them all with a single transmitted order. Maintain position. No ship fires without direct authorization from this vessel. Anyone who violates this order will be considered a traitor to the Council and treated accordingly. The threat of execution for disobedience bought him time, but time to do what? He stared at the tactical display, searching for any weakness in the human formation. There was none. The sphere was perfect. Every angle covered, every escape route blocked. His chief tactical officer, a Xanthari named Vexim with 30 years of military experience, worked through simulation after simulation. Each one ended the same way: catastrophic council losses even in their best-case scenarios. If we concentrate our forces and punch through one section of their sphere, Vexim reported, we could possibly create an escape corridor. Estimated casualties, 70% of our fleet. The humans would simply collapse their formation and destroy our ships as they flee. What if we scatter? Krelnak asked. 50,000 ships moving in different directions simultaneously. They cannot target us all. They don't need to target us all, sir. Their formation allows them to maintain coverage even if we scatter. Our ships would be separated, vulnerable to being destroyed individually. Estimated casualties, 85%. Krelnak felt his scales darken with despair. What option gives us better than 50% survival? Vexim was silent for a long moment. Surrender, sir. That is the only option where most of our crews survive. The War Master wanted to rage, to reject the assessment, to find fault with the analysis. But he had not reached his position by ignoring uncomfortable truths. Vexim was right. The humans had created a situation where the only rational choice was submission, but rationality was not the only force at play. Across the Armada, some species were less concerned with survival than with honor. 3 hours into the 12-hour deadline, a wing of Carthek's destroyers broke formation. The Cartheks were a warrior culture that believed death in battle was preferable to surrender. 60 of their ships accelerated toward the nearest section of the human sphere, weapons charging, their commanders broadcasting war cries in their harsh, clicking language. Admiral Chen watched them come. "Defensive action only," she ordered calmly. "Disable if possible. Destroy if necessary." The Carthek's destroyers entered weapons range and fired. Their plasma cannons were powerful, capable of melting through most known armor. The bolts of superheated matter streaked across space toward the human vessels, and stopped. The human ships had activated some kind of defensive field that the Council had never seen before. The plasma bolts hit the invisible barrier and simply dissipated. Their energy dispersed harmlessly into space. The Cartheks fired again, targeting different ships, adjusting frequencies. Nothing worked. Then the humans returned fire. It was not like any weapon system in the Council's database. No missiles, no plasma, no kinetic rounds. Instead, focused beams of energy that seemed to pass through the Carthek's shields as if they were not there. The beams touched the destroyers' hulls and the ships simply stopped working. Propulsion failed. Weapons went offline. Life support remained active, but everything else went dead. 60 Carthek's destroyers drifted in space, completely disabled, their crews alive but helpless. The engagement had lasted less than 2 minutes. "Medical emergency protocols activated," one of Chen's officers reported. We are detecting life support failures on 3 of the disabled vessels. Dispatching rescue shuttles. Good, Chen said. Save everyone you can. Captain Vorneth witnessed the brief battle with growing horror. They did not destroy them, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sir? Pexall looked confused. The humans disabled the Carthex ships instead of destroying them. Then they sent rescue teams to save crews whose life support failed. Pexall, do you understand what this means? The young censor officer thought for a moment. They have weapons that can kill us easily, but they choose not to? Exactly. This is not a species fighting desperately for survival. This is a species that has already won and is now demonstrating mercy. Vorneth's skin showed complex patterns of respect and fear, which makes them far more dangerous than if they were simply destroying everyone. Word of the Carthex failure spread quickly through the Armada. Other aggressive species reconsidered their plans for glory. If the mighty Carthex warriors could be swatted aside so easily, what chance did anyone else have? 6 hours into the deadline, the psychological pressure began to break some species. The Plexan Collective, always pragmatic, transmitted their surrender directly to Admiral Chen. 3 other species followed within the hour. By hour 8, 15 species had independently announced they would accept human terms. This created a new crisis. The Armada was fracturing. Some species wanted to fight, some wanted to surrender, some wanted to negotiate separately. The unified front that the Council had presented was crumbling, and the humans had not fired a single shot beyond the defensive action against the Carthex. Krelnak called an emergency council session. Representatives from the most powerful species gathered via holographic communication. The Krillian ambassador Thexalor was there, his skin showing defeated gray. The Zenthari Elder Council sent 3 representatives. The Vaxen Dominion, the Corthan Alliance, the Ural Imperium, all the great powers of the galaxy, all facing the same impossible situation. We must present a unified decision, Krelnak began. If we fragment, we lose all bargaining power. What bargaining power? Demanded the Vaxen representative. They hold every advantage. They can destroy us whenever they choose. The only reason we are still alive is because they want us alive. Then we should be grateful for their mercy and accept their terms, Thexalor said quietly. All eyes turned to him. The ambassador who had delivered humanity's ultimatum now advocated for surrender. I met Admiral Chen. I looked into her eyes. She is not bluffing. She is not uncertain. She has planned this for years, and every step has gone exactly as she intended. You advocate for cowardice, snarled a Carthex commander. I advocate for survival, Thexalor replied, and for learning. The humans have taught us something important. We are not as superior as we believed. Perhaps it is time we started listening to younger species instead of crushing them. The debate raged for 2 hours. Some argued for honor. Some argued for survival. Some argued for trying to negotiate better terms. But as the deadline approached, the reality became impossible to ignore. They were trapped, outgunned, and facing an enemy that had demonstrated both overwhelming capability and surprising restraint. In the end, it came down to a vote: surrender or fight. The decision would bind all Council species, even those who disagreed. The vote was close. 412 species voted to surrender, 308 voted to fight, 127 abstained. Krelnak closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. History would judge him, but history would only exist if he made the right choice now. He opened a channel to the human flagship. Admiral Chen appeared on screen, her expression patient. She had been waiting, completely calm, while the Council tore itself apart debating. Admiral Chen, Krelnak said, his voice heavy, the Council has voted. The majority accepts surrender, but not all species agree. 137 species refuse to submit. They intend to fight. Then they will fight, Chen said simply. But you, War Master, what is your choice? Krelnak thought of his 3 children, grown now but still his greatest pride. He thought of the thousands of young soldiers under his command who deserved to return home. He thought of what surrender would mean for his career, his reputation, his legacy. Then he thought of what death would mean for all those same things. The Council's judgment surrenders, he said, as do all ships under my direct command. That is approximately 32,000 vessels. Chen nodded respectfully. A wise decision, War Master. Order your ships to power down all weapons and prepare for inspection teams. Any ship that complies will be treated with respect and released within 48 hours. You have my word. And the species that refuse? Krelnak asked, though he already knew the answer. Admiral Chen's expression hardened slightly. They will discover what we are capable of when someone forces our hand. The channel closed. Krelnak transmitted the surrender order to all ships under Council authority. Across the Armada, 32,000 vessels powered down their weapons and waited. But 18,000 ships, belonging to 137 species that valued pride over prudence, charged their weapons and prepared for battle. On the human flagship, Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as the enemy fleet divided itself. The reasonable ones would survive. The stubborn ones would become an example. How long until they attack? Commander Webb asked. 20 minutes, Chen replied. They are coordinating their assault. They think if they all strike simultaneously, they can overwhelm our defenses. Can they? Chen smiled, that same confident smile that had confused and frightened the Council for days. Marcus, we have been planning for this moment for 3 years. We have simulated every possible response, prepared for every contingency. Those ships are going to attack with everything they have. She paused, watching the numbers on the display. 18,000 ships, tens of millions of lives, all choosing pride over survival. And 40 minutes from now, Chen said quietly, they are going to wish they had made a different choice. The battle began at exactly hour 11, 53 minutes into the 12-hour deadline. 18,000 ships from 137 species, representing every corner of the galaxy, launched their attack simultaneously. It was a coordinated assault that would have overwhelmed most defensive positions in known military history. Against humanity's prepared defenses, it lasted 41 minutes. Captain Vorneth watched from his disabled ship as the battle unfolded. The Council's judgment and the other surrendered vessels had powered down their weapons but maintained full sensors. They were witnesses to what happened when someone forced humanity to stop being patient. The attacking species tried everything. The Carthex warriors charged straight ahead, believing in the honor of direct combat. The Yrel Imperium attempted flanking maneuvers, trying to exploit gaps in the human sphere. The Vaxan Dominion used their mastery of electronic warfare, attempting to blind human sensors and disrupt their communications. Nothing worked. Human weapons technology, hidden and untested until this moment, proved devastatingly effective. The directed energy weapons that had disabled the Carthex destroyers were only the beginning. The humans deployed kinetic missiles that thought for themselves, adjusting course mid-flight to track dodging targets. They used gravitational weapons that crushed ships like tin cans without ever touching them. They demonstrated electromagnetic pulse technology that shut down entire squadrons simultaneously. But most frightening was the cyber warfare. Human computer systems infiltrated enemy vessels, turning their own weapons against nearby ships. A Yrel battleship suddenly fired on its wingmate. A Vaxine cruiser's engines reversed thrust, sending it crashing into 2 other vessels. Across the battlefield, ships began betraying their allies, controlled by code that rewrote itself faster than any defensive system could track. They are not just fighting us, Pexal whispered, watching her sensors. They are making us fight each other. Vorneth nodded slowly. When you control the battlefield absolutely, You do not waste ammunition. You make your enemies destroy themselves. The human fleet barely moved during the entire engagement. They maintained their sphere, adjusted their firing solutions, and methodically eliminated threats with minimal wasted effort. It was not passionate or angry or even particularly dramatic. It was surgical, precise, and utterly overwhelming. 37 minutes into the battle, the first species surrendered. The Corthan Alliance, watching half their fleet disabled in less than 2 minutes, transmitted an emergency surrender and begged for mercy. Admiral Chen accepted immediately, and the Corthan ships were allowed to drift out of the combat zone to safety. Other species followed quickly. By minute 40, only 2 species were still fighting: the Carthex and a fanatic religious group called the Eternal Flame. They fought until the end, brave and foolish in equal measure. When it was over, 43,000 ships had been disabled or destroyed. The human fleet had lost 18 vessels, all to lucky shots in the opening minutes of the engagement. The mathematical reality was staggering, a 3-to-1 ratio in favor of a defensive fleet that had sprung an ambush. Admiral Chen surveyed the battlefield, her expression somber now. Millions of lives lost because of pride. Millions more who would return home with stories of how humanity had dismantled the greatest armada in galactic history. "Begin rescue operations," she ordered. "I want every disabled ship searched for survivors. Anyone alive gets medical attention and transport to safety." "Even the ones who were trying to kill us?" Webb asked. "Especially them," Chen replied. "They need to understand that we are not monsters. We are people who will defend ourselves absolutely, but who also value life. That message is more important than vengeance." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Human medical teams worked alongside surrendered Council personnel to save lives. Engineering teams stabilized damaged vessels to prevent catastrophic failures. The humans organized food distribution, medical supplies, even entertainment for the hundreds of thousands of stranded Council soldiers waiting to go home. Captain Vornath found himself working beside human engineers to repair his ship's power systems. The human leading the team was a young woman named Sarah, the same name as the Admiral, which seemed to be common among humans. She worked efficiently and explained each step clearly, treating Vornath as an equal rather than a defeated enemy. "Why are you helping us?" Vornath asked as they recalibrated a power coupling. "You won. You could leave us here to suffer." Sarah looked at him with genuine confusion. "Why would we do that? You surrendered. The fight is over. Now you are just people who need help." "But we came to destroy you." "Yeah," Sarah said, attaching a new component. "But you failed. No point in holding grudges about stuff that didn't happen." Vornath thought about this simple philosophy. No point in holding grudges about stuff that didn't happen. It was so completely different from Council thinking, where past intentions justified eternal punishment. On the 5th day after the battle, Admiral Chen called a conference. Representatives from every species that had participated in the Armada, both those who surrendered peacefully and those who fought, gathered on a massive human station that had appeared in high Earth orbit. The station was new, clearly just completed, able to hold thousands of beings from hundreds of different species. Ambassador Thexlor attended, representing the Krillian Dominion. War Master Krelnak was there for the Zenthari. Even the surviving Carthex commanders came, though they looked defeated in ways that had nothing to do with physical harm. Admiral Chen stood before them all, no longer in her military uniform, but wearing a simple dark suit. She looked tired, older somehow, as if the weight of what had happened had finally caught up with her. 3 days ago, she began, we fought a battle that should never have happened. Lives were lost that could have been saved if people had chosen wisdom over pride. I hope you all remember those losses, because we cannot let them be meaningless. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. The Galactic Council has maintained order for 12,000 years. That is an impressive achievement. But order is not the same as justice. You have kept peace by crushing anyone who challenged you. You have maintained stability by forbidding change. You have created a galaxy where ancient species control everything and young species are kept in chains. Murmurs of protest rippled through the audience, but Chen raised her hand. I am not saying you were evil. I am saying you were comfortable. And comfortable people rarely see the suffering they cause. She changed the holographic display to show hundreds of species. These are the civilizations you have suppressed, contained, or controlled. Some are kept at primitive technology levels. Some are forbidden from colonizing beyond their home systems. Some are prevented from developing artificial intelligence or genetic engineering or faster-than-light travel. You decided they were not ready, not worthy, not trustworthy. Because they are not, interrupted a Vaxxan representative. Young species are unstable. They make wars. They destroy themselves. Like we did? Chen asked pointedly. We destroyed an enforcement fleet, yes, in self-defense. Then we built the largest deception in galactic history and trapped your entire armada without firing a shot until you forced us to. Does that sound unstable to you? Silence answered her. Humanity demands 3 things, Chen said firmly. First, the Galactic Council will be reformed. Every species you have suppressed will receive representation. Every contained civilization will be given the opportunity to prove themselves. The Council will still exist, but it will no longer be a club of ancient powers enforcing stagnation. Second, all containment treaties will be reviewed. Species that have been held back will be given access to technology and space appropriate to their development. Not all at once. We are not fools, but gradually with support and guidance instead of chains. Third, humanity will maintain a permanent defensive fleet in this system and will assist in protecting other young species from aggression. We will not be the galaxy's police force, but we will not allow what almost happened to us to happen to others. War Master Krelnok stood slowly. And if we refuse these demands? Admiral Chen met his gaze steadily. Then you will discover that our fleet is currently only at 30% of full strength. The other 70% is still under construction. In 6 months, we will have enough ships to enforce our demands without asking nicely first. The threat hung in the air, clear and unmistakable. Humanity could be reasoned with, could be negotiated with, could even be friendly. But humanity would not be pushed around. Thexler stood next. I believe I speak for many when I say that Admiral Chen's demands are reasonable, perhaps even overdue. The Council has been resistant to change for too long. This defeat is embarrassing, but it may also be necessary. Other representatives began nodding. The reformed Council would be uncomfortable for the old powers, but the alternative was worse, much worse. I have a question, a Carthex commander said, his voice rough with shame. We fought honorably and lost completely. Why did you save our lives? Why help us repair our ships? We do not understand this mercy. Chen smiled, and this time it was warm rather than predatory. Because you are not our enemies. You were following orders from your government. Many of you believed you were doing the right thing. We do not punish people for that. We defend ourselves when necessary, but we do not seek revenge. That is not who we are. She looked around the conference room at hundreds of faces representing hundreds of species. The galaxy is going to change. We are going to make sure of it. But we do not want to rule you. We do not want to replace the Council's tyranny with our own. We want something that has never really existed before. A galaxy where species are judged by their actions, not their age. Where young civilizations are given chances instead of chains. Where order comes from cooperation rather than fear. That is a nice dream, the Vaxxan representative said skeptically. But can it actually work? 3 days ago, Chen replied. You thought we were a primitive species with 200 old ships. You thought you had perfect intelligence. You thought you understood us completely. How did those assumptions work out?" A few beings actually laughed at that. The tension in the room eased slightly. "Do not underestimate what is possible," Chen continued. "We humans learned that lesson the hard way, many times throughout our history. Now you are learning it too. The galaxy can change, will change. The only question is whether you want to be part of that change or stand in its way." The conference lasted 6 more hours. Terms were negotiated, compromises reached, frameworks established. It would take years to implement everything, decades probably. But the agreement was made. The galaxy would be reformed. 2 weeks later, Captain Vornith prepared to leave orbit and return home. His ship was fully repaired, better than it had been before the battle thanks to some technology the humans had shared. His crew was healthy and, surprisingly, optimistic about the future. Before he departed, Admiral Chen visited his ship personally. They met in his ready room, a small space that felt cramped with both of them present. "I wanted to thank you," Chen said. "Your reports to the Council about our unusual behavior were insightful. You almost figured out what we were doing." Vorneth's skin showed embarrassed orange. "I failed to prevent a disaster." "No," Chen said firmly. "You tried to warn people who would not listen. That is different. I read your reports. You were careful, thoughtful, and more concerned with truth than your career. Those are good qualities in an officer." She handed him a small data chip. "When you get home, watch this. It is a human film about a famous battle from our history. I think you will understand us better after seeing it." "What is it called?" Vornith asked. "The Battle of Thermopylae," Chen said. "It is about 300 warriors facing an army of hundreds of thousands. They lost that battle, but they won something more important. They proved that numbers do not guarantee victory, that courage and intelligence and preparation matter more than size." Vornith took the chip carefully. "Is that why you smiled? Before the battle, you were smiling because you felt like those 300 warriors?" "No," Chen said, and her smile returned. "We smiled because we were not like those 300. We were the army of hundreds of thousands. Your council just never realized which role they were playing." After Admiral Chen left, Vornith sat in his ready room for a long time, turning the data chip over in his hands. Humanity had changed the galaxy in 2 weeks, changed it completely, permanently, and probably for the better. He thought about that smile again. The smile that had confused and frightened the council. Now he understood it completely. It was the smile of people who knew exactly what they were capable of and were utterly confident in their own abilities. The galaxy had seen that smile and nearly ended itself trying to crush it. He hoped the lesson had been learned, because humanity had been patient this time, had offered mercy and cooperation and reform. But Captain Vornith suspected that humanity had limits to its patience, and he very much did not want to see what would happen if those limits were reached. 3 months later, the first reformed Galactic Council convened. Representation had tripled, including dozens of species that had never been allowed a voice before. The old powers still had influence, but they no longer controlled everything. And in a chair marked with Earth's blue and green symbol, Admiral Sarah Chen sat as humanity's first representative. She was smiling. Somewhere across the galaxy, on ships and stations and planets, people saw that smile and remembered. Remembered the armada that came to crush humanity. Remembered the trap that turned hunters into prey. Remembered the battle that lasted 41 minutes and changed everything. And they understood that the galaxy had entered a new age. An age where being old did not make you wise. Where having the most ships did not make you invincible. Where the species that smiled before battle began might be the most dangerous of all. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage not with a request for permission, but with a demonstration of capability. They had earned their place not through age or tradition, but through intelligence, preparation, and the absolute willingness to defend themselves against any threat. The old galaxy was dead. The new galaxy was just beginning. And somewhere in deep space, construction continued on the remaining 70% of humanity's fleet, just in case anyone needed a reminder about what happened to those who underestimated them.